Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading White Women Get Ready, How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change. This is something I'm working on for my own practice of deconstructing the delusion of white supremacy, and if you would like to read along with me, you can get copies here. There's a symbolic nature to interracial families that we've been taught flies in the face of racism. Indeed, these interracial love children challenge the purported logic of racism in many ways. However, throughout history, and especially now, the isolated act of having children of mixed race ancestry has not succeeded in bringing racism to its knees. Decades after the end of legal segregation, having an interracial family does not necessarily challenge the intransigence of racism, nor does it end it. The symbolism of interracial families can be so loud in its calling upon courageous love across forbidden racial boundaries that it can silence the ways these familial arrangements continue to uphold racism, especially the impact on the children raised within them. I'm thinking especially of white women who have defied their openly bigoted white families in order to be in relationships with people of color. One of my colleagues comes to mind. She married a black man and had given birth to and raised children with him. Her sorrow was evident as she told me about the lengths to which they had gone to create their family and the painful loss of relationship with her family of origin because of it. It must have been a harrowing feat to defy her family and her socialization so thoroughly. As she put it, she gave up all she had known for love. Sounds like leaving a cult, the cult of white supremacy. She was in tune with the discrimination her children, husband, and family faced. She was sensitive to the ways her kids were treated differently at school and how she was often not read in public as their parent. In the same way she fought against the racism within her birth family, she fought racism on behalf of her kids, which is awesome and important. But this sense of herself as victim and protector was, in many ways, where her narrative stopped. Then she traveled with a black colleague to attend a comprehensive anti-racist workshop. Despite her intimate family relationships and thus cultural familiarity with black people, her colleagues at work complained about her ongoing microaggressions in her interactions with them. She scratches out the micro because they're not small. One of the things they observed was how her interracial family relationships gave her a sense of over-familiarity with black people and cultures. She extended this over-familiarity to the black woman with whom she worked, perhaps assuming that because of her proximity to blackness as a wife, mother, daughter-in-law, etc., they would be comfortable with her being so comfortable with them. Unfortunately, she returned from the anti-racist workshop feeling she'd been attacked. The analysis shared at the workshop contradicted her self-story, one in which she saw herself as the victim of her family's bigotry and as a fighter and protector in the face of such hardship. How could anyone accuse her of perpetuating racism when she had restructured her life so completely to defy it? I share parts of my colleague's experience here because hers is not a rare contradiction. How heart-wrenching to have been rejected by her family in those ways. Her pain is deep and legitimate. Her sacrifice is real. I want her to be able to name the injustices of her situation and feel safe to express her pain. Those are some deep wounds to tend to. And also, her story has me wondering about when and how our hurt gets misplaced. What are the ways we white women misdirect and project the wounds of mistress syndrome? The perpetrator of my colleague's pain is not the anti-racist analysis delivered at the workshop or the feedback given by her colleagues. The culprit of racism is much bigger and more insidious. It persists despite her individual courageous actions and their hurtful and disappointing consequences. This contradiction can be a hard one. Being victimized in one extremely painful dynamic does not make us a victim in other situations. Standing up courageously against racism in one context does not mean we will automatically make anti-racist choices in future scenarios. How might an identity of victim/protector hide other aspects of parenting while white? How might it cause us to then misunderstand our agency to protect our children, both inside and outside of our home space? Among other things, it's hard to prepare children to navigate the world in their racialized bodies if we don't know how we navigate the world through our own. Many white parents and people have not deeply investigated their own whiteness, including how their family of origin was racialized and how race shaped them, what that means when it comes to parenting, and how they can disinvest from parenting out of whiteness. These are all important things to consider, and fortunately, there are a growing number of resources out there and communities coming together to do this work. I bring this up not as a critique, but as encouragement. For the many white parents out there raising children of color, there is so much important, difficult, and wonderful work to be done. Whether you are in an interracial relationship, whether you are the primary parent or caregiver, whether you and a white partner have adopted children of a different racial, cultural, and ethnic background, regardless of your specific interracial family configuration, there are so many things within your power to change. A great place to start is beginning to learn more about how you've been racialized as white and what that means culturally for you, your parenting, your extended family dynamics, and your child. In my experience of organizing with youth, some of the young people who struggled the most with the anti-racist analysis were youth of color who had been raised primarily by white parents. At home, many of them had been raised within white culture and had been taught to navigate the world through the lens of whiteness. Yet when they moved out into the world, and increasingly so in adolescence, without the racial advantage of having a white parent nearby, they began to be treated outside of the bounds of whiteness as a racialized other. There was so much their parents had missed in preparing them to navigate the world in their Black, brown, and Asian bodies. Strategies of multicultural celebration and individual exceptionality had not offered them the deeper tools of psychological resilience that communities of color have been cultivating for centuries. I name these dynamics not to blame or shame parents. I offer it as an invitation for all of us to learn and unlearn and to grow. I offer it as an invitation of interdependence because as a non-parenting person, these are crucial contributions I can't make, and they are contributions that are so needed. I have seen adoptive white parents embrace multiculturalism and celebrate their child's ethnic origin and identity, supplementing their parenting with cultural exposure like cultural and religious school, language learning and retention, visits to birth communities, and celebrating cultural holidays. I've witnessed white parents building community with other adoptive families and connecting to local communities that align with their child's culture of birth. All of this is significant and important. Supporting a child in knowing where they come from and who they are is critical identity work. And also there's a nuanced aspect to this identity work that usually gets missed because whiteness restricts identity as individual rather than collective. Given the way race functions today, white parents, no matter how racially aware, will not be able to adequately prepare their children of color to navigate racism. Even if they have spent decades of life in anti-racist practice, white parents can never be fully equipped because they will never know what it's like to be in a world racialized as non-white and through their child's specific racialized identity. I get that no parent is ever able to truly, entirely prepare their child for anything, but there are things white parents can do, especially when it comes to prioritizing reciprocal relationships within the communities from which children of color belong. Are white parents engaging in long-term, accountable peer and mentee relationships with adults and elders of their children's racialized and ethnic communities? Are there peer relationships in which there can be both loving support and honest challenge? Our children need these deep, authentic, and ongoing relationships too. That most white parents exploring adoption or who are in transracial partnerships have not prioritized these community relationships is of real concern. From my vantage points, many white parents don't have these pre-existing relationships, haven't considered how they will support their children in growing up within a different cultural context, and don't know how to identify what their own culture is, including the presence of white culture in the home.